Hey guys. Hello everyone. I am going to disconnect on here and hopefully be able to get everybody going. I'm going to go ahead and while we're getting everybody in their seats, we're going to be talking about the first part of MaM. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling up actually the storyboard for us. So we'll give that a minute. And then we'll do a sound check as well as a visual check once we're there. All right, guys. So what we're going to try to do is, for those of you that can hear me, I need Lily and the others, Sammy. If you guys want to go back on Discord, I left you a link. All right, guys. Oh, my own voice. Hold on. There we go. Okay, everybody. Sammy and BB and Lily, all of you, there's a link there for you to join the Hangout call. And I left it in the puddle text, I believe. So you're welcome to jump on the call. And what we're doing, you guys, is we're just kind of after our debut of the series. If anybody has questions or you want to talk about it, I've brought up the boards themselves. And so with that, here we go. Give me just 2 minutes to get everything set up and I'll be right back. All right, so let me see if I can make this a little bit smaller. There it goes, and we can come back to this. We'll get this over here so that we can see the chat as well. Now is a chance for everybody to kind of get their voice on what did you guys feel about the movie? My intent was to bring the past back into this present time so that we can connect dots that we haven't always connected to. And a lot of people are new to the case and they're not quite familiar with how serious the case was in 1985, and they don't realize we're dealing with the same individuals that were being sued or affiliated with the 1985 case are also handling the 2005 case. So let's go ahead and before we start the live, let's bring this out. Here we go. Now, can everybody hear me nice and clear? I think I can pop the chat out, can't I? I always try to do this and I'm not that good at it. Okay, there's these little buttons. Good background info present to give more insight. Yeah. Okay, we got the good sound. Excellent, excellent. Okay, guys, I'm going to pop out the chat so that I can perhaps get over here to this board. Now, where'd chat go? Well, we'll move this over. Woohoo. Hey, we're getting better with this every day. Okay, we'll scroll that down this way. Now, if I start lagging, when I pop out chat, I notice it lags a lot. So you'll have to forgive me and somebody update me. I'm waiting on some of the people to come on the call. So hopefully they can find theirself way in. I'm just running out. Are you here yet? Hopefully they'll jump in on the call soon. Okay, and we've got a good visual as well, everybody. Thank you, Black Rose. Hi, Roger. Hi, Jill. Hi, Sammy, Alex. Alex actually helped on the board itself, and so did BB. They did amazing artwork. So it was a lot of researchers gathering information for this. So I think they did an amazing job. I really do. Okay, so the first thing I thought was interesting is that the whole thing is over a mistaken identity. No link. Yeah, Sammy, it's there. It's on the puddle text or on Blackboard. Let me go look and see where we put it. I think I put it on the puddle text though. Whoop, I just entered a call. Okay, puddle text. Whoa. Okay, Sammy, I'm getting it. Hold on. We'll go back over. We'll get some people on the call. I got to remember which buttons to push here. So we need this little guy. How do I do it now? All right, so YouTube page. How did I do this? I sent out invites or something last time, you guys. Let's go over here. Yeah, that would be right. I click the link. How did we do it last time? See if it just brings it up. Yeah, you just click on that top link. Why is everyone on Hangouts? Yeah, Mimbly, you guys just click on that link, don't you? And that should take you there. I might be wrong, you guys. Hold on. We'll get this figured out. I'll be right back. All right, guys, I found it. Okay, I'm getting the link. You guys are right, of course. Control copy. Close that. Then I'll go back to Discord and link for live chat. Very good. All right. Enter there. Okay, guys. I put the link in RD Puddle Text. So anybody that wants to jump on the call, you go click that link and you'll be all set. Unknown is calling me via Hangouts. BB. Oh, see, I don't even know what I'm doing. Get back over to Hangouts, see if I can pick up the call. Well, I did put the link in there if I don't get your call because I really don't know how to. I'm already on a call, so I can't take another. But I did put the link for you all. So let's go back and check our chat window. Right here. Hey, I hear somebody. Or is that Discord? All right. Let's go ahead and look at while we're waiting on people to come in. I did put the link now for everybody. Braun, the link is in Discord in Puddle Text, as well as anybody else that wants to join us that wants that. Sammy, I put the link now for you. Okay, let's go right back through here. Let me get this board up for you while we're doing this. All right, looks like everybody's getting in their seats. Good visual. Emma said, got around to watching. That was weird sounding. I don't know if you guys heard it, but I did. Like a feedback sound. I haven't got around to watching Mini Ma'am yet. Every time I say Mini Ma'am, I get that buzz. Mini Ma'am, a little bit. To join. No, you can join now. Emma, you can join us with us just like you are. Okay, Holy Moly says, my first question, why did one officer come out of retirement to assist with the rape case? Seems they wanted, I bet, sure to make sure the convictions stick to Steve Avery. Actually, that's a great point. Actually, he didn't come out for the rape case. He was working at that time. He was employed by Manitowoc, and that was Mr. Bushman. He was a canine unit, and he was there to arrest Steven Avery with the rest of the people. He came out of retirement in 2005 on the Teresa Halbach case. So that's what's going on. And John says, an officer came out of retirement to assist on Halbach case, not the rape case. That's correct. That's very good, very good. Well, hopefully my gang will find their, the team will find their link. I'm just going to look into Puddle Chat. Okay. Well, there's a link now. It's in Puddle Text, you guys. And if you want to click that, it'll bring you right into this call. Okay, guys. I lost my chat window again. There it is, way over here. There's like 5 windows. Boy, there's some strange sounds on this today. Not sure why. I'm going to see if it's my fan. So one of the things was interesting. I'm not sure, Alex. I'm not sure. Okay, Mistaken Identity Part 1. This is going to be a series that takes place for quite a few weeks. We can't exactly tell you when because there's still a few to get in the can to be able to tell you the timeline we're talking. But it will be at least 5, if not more. I'm pretty sure more. And yeah, it did. It sounded like a phone ringing. I don't have a landline at all. I have no idea. Like I'm picking up extra sound. I totally agree. There it is again. Like somebody's phone's ringing and we're picking it up on the Wi-Fi. Maybe I don't know. Um, But as we go through the series, we're going to walk it. We're going to do like we did now. We're going to be not only taking what MaM offered us, but what the jury didn't get to see, what MaM didn't know at the time. The whole world has dug in, and we're all researchers of this case. And every day we're doing public awareness, and we're gathering all this information. But what we felt needed to happen and why it's taken us so long is we need to have a rich document. What I mean by that is we need to record history with the present timeline and the know-how and the knowledge that we've gained and insert it and plug it into the old way. Hey, Billy. Hey, bro. He's working. This man works so many hours all the time, and any free moment he gets, he dedicates to digging into this case. So a special shout out to Billy. And if you get a minute, he's got a YouTube channel. If one of the mods, I don't know if we have some on or not, but if I can get one of them to post Millbilly's channel, or Millbilly, if you've got a minute, go ahead, post that, and send some Millbilly love over there. Show him you love him. He does a lot of work on the case, so, and we thank him for that. And we have we'll talk a little bit more about this. So as we go through this, you know, we also have a big, huge conflict of interest, which is absolutely a mess because when 1985 comes along, who do we have in the case, you guys? Sherry Culhane. We have Colburn. You know, well, not in 1985. He's in 93, I believe, or 92. But look at this. Why is this woman testing this stuff? Now, she wants to be claimed to have exonerated. I'm going to unplug my mic and see if that helps us, and we'll just go straight up. I think I'm getting inter. So we'll go ahead. Yep, all same players, Holly. Very good, very good. Can you guys hear me at all?
Yes.
Yes. Who was that?
Sammy.
Hey, Sammy, did you join the call?
I did.
Thank you. I've been wondering where everybody is. It's like they all got kind of stuck in the old pond and didn't come over.
I had to actually restart my stuff for some reason.
We made it for everybody else. Well, that's excellent. What we're talking about, Sammy, is we have the same players in both cases. Hey, Jeff,
Yeah.
how are you? One of the people is, you know, you hear the guilter say, well, you can't get too down on Sherry Culhane because Sherry Culhane exonerated Steven in 2003. Well, actually, oh, goodness, she did not exonerate Steven. It's Discord. I got to close it down. I've got contradicting two mics at once, I suppose. I'm pretty sure it was Discord that was doing that. It did. It sounded like a phone ringing. I'm just checking messages to see who's all coming. I think it's just going to be me and you, Sammy.
Okay.
We'll go.
Well, I see someone else in there.
Oh, well, they need to speak at any time. Ooh. I'm not sure. I'm hearing a lot of weird crackling and stuff. I don't hear anything. You have to unmute your mic, Jeff. I mean, your headset. Let me see if I can kind of walk you through what you got to do here, maybe on my screen. So if you can see my cursor, this is to X out your camera. This right here is your mic. I don't know. Expedition's here. Sammy's here. Sammy's here. Alex is here. But Jeff, you've got to join the call. Yeah, Jeff's got to join the call. Take the invite. We'll get all caught up. All right, let's jump over here for a minute. We'll get the PowerPoint going again. The sound seems to have cut out the crappy stuff. Who's calling me? Via Hangouts. I don't know. Can we take a call?
I guess you'll find out, won't you?
Yeah, it'll either disconnect us. Yeah, I think she's trying to go a different route. Yeah, that takes me to a different call. Oh, I just ended the call. And I think I just ended our
I
hangout.
know. There they are.
I don't know what I did. Are they here?
I think so. Now unmute your mic.
Here. Yay. So you guys, we're talking about how the 1985 people are also playing the same parts in the 2005 case. So the foundation to this entire saga, this entire case, actually stems all the way back to 1985. Now, what really bothers me a lot about Sherry Culhane is we have several crime labs. She did not exonerate him. That's what the guilters tell you. Here's how it really went down. The Innocence Project got a court order mandating by law that Sherry had to perform the test. She simply ran the machine. The machine kicked out a hair and said, or kicked out the results from the hair sample and said that it was Gregory Allen as matched. And she had no choice but to report it. So we can't really give her, a pat on the back when she then held on to the results for over a year.
That floored me.
Good morning, Rubberducky.
Hi, Silkman. How are you?
Yeah, good. How's everyone?
Good. Oh, I'm doing good.
Wonderful.
Fantastic.
Did you have a chance to watch the mini MaM yet?
I haven't as yet. Life got in the way, but I promise I will check it.
Well, life is supposed to get in the way. Life is important. I totally respect that.
But as soon as I saw Sherry Culhane, I thought, aha.
Yeah.
I need to comment.
Okay, we're going to read some of the crowds here. Holy moly put, I thought I heard the same about an officer coming back to the department to help on the rape case in the mini MaM. I must have misunderstood. Yeah, no, it was he Bushman. He comes out of retirement in 2005. And then let's see what else we have. Okay. I'm just kind of reading. Tyson writes, hello, Rubber, and all the duckies as well. Hi, Tyson. Glad to have you. And you too, George. Rachel writes, hey, RD, just got here, was on the phone call trying to get off so I can join. Sounds great. Sounds good. Emma, yes, can hear you. Too shy to talk. No problem. Hi, Barry. How are you? Yes, Sherry Culhane was forced absolutely by a court order. And even after that court order, maybe it kind of reminds you of something else, like somebody dragging their feet to respond that was due on the 1st of May. Sherry Culhane drug it out for as long as she humanly could. So, yeah, I don't give her any pats on the back. She has not. Well, Silkman, do you want to address how she follows protocol so cautiously?
Well, I'm going to be doing a little video soon about item FL, the bullet fragment. Yeah, and it's really important, I think, to tell that story and how that unfolded. But essentially, she did not really follow the laboratory protocols at all. And of course, that had serious consequences for the case. But just getting back to the exoneration, Yeah, she didn't do the experiment for, like you said, Rubberducky, for a year. So even though she had the hair to test, to run through the DNA protocol, she didn't do so for a year, which meant that Steven Avery sat in prison for an extra year that he didn't really have to. Now, the frustrating thing is, of course, Rubberducky, is that it takes maybe a day to get a result.
Yeah.
So
Huh.
to run the
It was over
DNA,
a year. It was like
yeah,
we've actually got the timeline somewhere. It was like
yeah,
a year and a half.
yeah. It wasn't done immediately. Put it that way. That's the
Yeah.
frustrating part. So you know, and when one comes to think about it, that's why the gentleman invented the new anti-rapid DNA system, in which you can now get a result in like 90 minutes. Isn't that incredible?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that way, cases can be resolved fairly quickly. Cherie took nearly more than a year to test the hair. And once the profile came back as Gregory Allen, then really the courts had no choice but to exonerate Steve. And as we all know, the frustrating thing is that he always said he wasn't involved. He had nothing to do with the rape. But of course, we know Rubberducky. No one believed him. But DNA set him free, and it looks like DNA's got him back into prison again. So, yeah,
And
Stephen, DNA.
somehow we're going
Sorry.
to do this. I said DNA is going to get him out again. You watch.
Correct. I really
The lack of
believe.
DNA the lack of DNA should get them out both. And here's what I mean.
Yeah.
With Brendan, we obviously know
Yes.
there's nothing to corroborate his story. So that's just, to me, I mean, where do you go?
Oh, yeah. It's with Brendan's case. It really is horrendous because there's really nothing to test, and a lot of people have done excellent work in regards to Brendan and his vulnerabilities. And as you know, I did a little video just recently, and you can see how very vulnerable to suggestibility that he was. Even the smallest amount of suggestibility, he essentially trusted people around him, people in authority, and whatever they said, he obviously said, well, that's got to be the case. And unfortunately, he paid very dearly for that.
Well, okay. And now, when I said that I thought that Stephen should also get out for lack of DNA, I'm talking
Yes,
about them giving away the DNA bones, the biological
yeah,
evidence that could be used in the Andy machine.
correct.
Well, how simple would that be? What was it? One day she tested it on
Yeah,
she got the result back on the same day, and on the 11th, Steve Avery was out. So
yeah,
every day that Stephen Avery wakes up, he's one day away from getting home. Just one day.
that is correct. That is correct. But unfortunately, and I know, and everyone else knows that there's a lot of legal red tape, and it's just a complete nightmare. And mind you, Kathleen Zellner is very, very intelligent, very smart, very cluey, and even she can't make any inroads. And that's a real worry, isn't it, Rubberducky?
Yeah. Yes. Hmm.
So hopefully, as Fallon used to say, common sense will prevail, and the bones can be finally tested to determine whose skeletal remains they belong to. Now, is that being unreasonable or what, Rubberducky?
No, I think unreasonable is them not giving them back. Is that what you're asking?
Well, the thing is that if you're the parents, the
Yeah.
relatives, you want to make sure that those cremains are indeed of your loved one, right? Because we all know what happened to Teresa. If those skeletal remains do belong to Teresa, it was a horrendous murder. horrendous. And you want to know, as a parent, are those cremains of my daughter, right? You want to make sure that they've got the right identity for a start. And that's important. And that's why I can't understand, what has the state got to lose, Rubberducky? What has the state got to lose?
What are they hiding?
Correct. Well, we can speculate, of course, but
Well,
it,
either way you look at it, there's actually one answer. They're hiding the identity of the bone.
potentially they could be, but one has to ask why.
Yeah, but the first question you have to ask is, what are they hiding? Then we get, well, they're hiding the identity of the bone. Then you ask the question, why are they hiding the bone? Well, we have a couple scenarios depending on who you are, how you believe. I do believe that Carmen Botwell fits very tightly into this case somehow. I always have from day one. There's just absolutely. I want to talk about it for a minute. I haven't talked about Carmen, and I always have felt a very closeness to this poor woman that has been that supposedly OD'd. With all the shenanigans that the police officers and law enforcement involved in the Halbach case have been known to do, I now look at it and say, wait a minute, they're the exact same individuals who are leaving the Avery property to go over while searching for Teresa on the 3rd. They had been looking for her, and they ended up going over and being the detectives that found Carmen.
Yeah.
Both girls never seen after the 31st of October 2005. Both girls reported in the paperwork as a death occurring on the 3rd. It blows my mind, the coincidences, whether they're related or not. They're the same height, same body weight, same hairstyle. They have the same looks. And unless you knew them individually, if one showed up on your property and you're only seeing them for 5 minutes and it's weeks and weeks apart, I'm just saying, what if she was used as like a sting operation somehow? We have reports that Carmen met with law enforcement prior to her death. We have a report from a family member that she was talking to law enforcement. I know she had court cases, but you see in this case where they take the individual in the car and they do these drive around interviews. You can hear blinkers going, windshield wipers going, the wind of the car.
Yes.
I don't know why, but they're using those cars, those vehicles, as like a mini office to be able to do this. Well, that's what we had. And back in the day, none of us bought it. We were like, why would she go get in somebody's car, a law enforcement car, and do an interview? But yet that's how they roll.
Yeah.
So can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
All right. I'm here.
Good.
Tell us what you think, BB.
Yeah, tell us what you think.
You already know what I think.
Go ahead and share it with everybody. We have the right to believe however we want. I don't care who you are. You're entitled to your opinion.
Yep.
He comes with a disclaimer because so many people in this case have a hard time accepting that it's a possibility. And it is. Scientifically, it absolutely is technically a possibility. BB, you believe Teresa Halbach is still alive. Is that correct?
Most certainly, yes. I believe she's alive. I believe that it was Carmen Botwell who did the job the whole time for Auto Trader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think she was gone. Teresa was gone long before. And I think after that DOJ agent got done, they put Carmen in.
Okay.
And
so let's walk through that for a minute. All right. So Teresa tells her boss in Green Bay, Tom Pierce, that Halloween night is going to be her last time to work for Auto Trader. That seems kind of strange.
I think he's part of it too.
Okay. But let's stay on that part. So the victim is telling someone ahead of time that her last day at that job is going to be October 31st.
Just so happens to be the day that she's going to disappear.
That was weird.
Or suspicious. That's my new catchphrase for the week. Well, probably
Suspicious.
for a month. Yeah. Is it a quinky dink, a coincidence, or is it suspicious? So here's another one for you. We have a call that supposedly goes in over at the zipper's house that disappears. So the answer machine records it. The cop goes in there. He uses his cell phone to record the call. He puts it on a CD, and now Zellner says that whole thing, they can't find the call itself, and she's not seeing that call to zippers on the cell phone record. So how in the world did Teresa manage to leave a message when it doesn't show up on her cell phone or her landline? So
Yes.
then we have the situation what Mrs. Zipper Joellen said. She said Teresa called here stating she could not find the place. But then you listen to what the law enforcement are trying to get us to believe is coming from the Tadich's home off that machine. And yeah, they filmed the machine and you see them pushing buttons. But how hard was it to basically just play from another cell phone the actual message? Well, it looked like somebody's pushing buttons. You're transferring it. You then take that little video where you're playing somebody else's cell phone, the cop that recorded it, but you're filming the answering machine, which is turned way down, volume off, so that it's just, you can see it rolling. Okay. Now play that to Blaine and say, is that your machine? He's only going by the visual because he doesn't know the calls that come in and out. He's looking at his machine. He's going to identify it. Let's grab some of these comments over here. Let's see. Woo, there are a lot of them, so I'm going to try to cover a couple of them here. Let me read a few. See. Okay, holy moly question. How do we know for sure how the murder happened and what was done to her? Silkman, can you kind of jump into that? I know you've been talking about beveling.
Yeah, I can. I spent a lot of time going through Eisenberg's testimony, and I also read her report. Would you like me to do a little quick summary of what I found?
If you wouldn't mind, we'd love it.
Yeah. So essentially, from looking at the cremains, now this is Eisenberg who examined the cremains. But before I do that, I just want to state to the listeners that Eisenberg was not the first person to look at the cremains. But that's another story.
Let me ask you questions about that, okay?
Yes.
So, according to what we've been told by Kratz, everybody else, and the person on the stand,
Yes.
these bones were put into basically a cardboard box. In
That's
my opinion, it looks like a flat pizza box.
Yes.
And then they were put on Eisenberg's desk, and she was supposedly on vacation for the weekend, as she puts it, but she doesn't show back up to work till Thursday. Okay?
Yeah.
So apparently her weekend is all week. And according to the prosecution's theory, she's the first anthropologist that is laying eyes on this. But that's not true, is it? Because we have reports.
That isn't true. That's exactly right. So essentially, the bones were shown to another anthropologist by the name of Dr. Bennett. Now, and we have evidence of that as well. Now, the disturbing thing is this. Dr. Bennett was able to have a look at the ilium bone. Now, for the listeners out there, the ilium is part of the pelvis. And he was able to look.
You got really quiet. You got really quiet. So sorry.
Rubberducky, can you hear me now?
You're good now. You're good now. Go ahead.
Yep. So Dr. Bennett was able to look at the ilium bone. Now, the ilium bone is part of the pelvis. Now, we know where the pelvis was found, right? Where was the pelvis found?
In the Manitowoc gravel quarry.
In the Manitowoc gravel pit. Yep, you got it. So on the 8th of November, Dr. Bennett saw obviously part of the bones, but he looked at the ilium. And you know what he was able to ascertain by looking at the ilium bone?
Now, the ilium is, for us kids that don't know all this stuff, that is the medical terminology for what we call the pelvic bone. Is that correct?
It's part of the pelvis. So
Okay.
basically, if you have a look where your hips are, you can feel the bony protrusion of your hip bone.
Yeah.
The ilium is part of the hip bone.
Okay.
Now, Dr. Bennett was able to have a look at this, and he concluded the following, that the ilium that he observed was from an adult female.
Oh.
Okay. Now,
So wait, sorry to interrupt you. Okay.
That's all
So
right.
this anthropologist, not Leslie Leisenberg, as a lot of people call her. I think Eric Cozy calls her Leisenberg.
Yeah.
Okay. So not her, but the first anthropologist, who has plenty of credentials to do this,
Yeah.
has right away at the very beginning of the case has established that indeed this is a human female
Correct.
bone, pelvic
Yeah.
piece that's down
Yeah.
in the quarry.
Yep.
And yet
Correct.
the prosecution didn't want to spend,
No.
Mr. Kratz didn't want to spend 20 minutes or even, no, he
20
said 20
seconds.
seconds. He didn't
20
want to
seconds.
spend 20 seconds on that person.
No. And I tell you what, do you think they called Dr. Bennett to the stand?
No, but and I know this isn't your department. I'm going to throw this question out there to the lawyers in this field. I would like to know if the defense had the opportunity to call that witness. So that's a rhetorical one on here because none of us are legal, really, and so we don't want to misstep and say the wrong thing. But I'm just throwing that out there to the listeners and to the legal beagles that can help us out. Basically, a lawyer might be able to help us, Tracy or someone, or Travis or somebody. Kind of when you guys are talking on your next lives, if you can answer that question for us. I know it's a weird way to kind of communicate, but it would help us because a lot of the same listeners kind of travel amongst all of us, and that way we can get the answers. Plus, I watch you guys' channels too. So, okay, back to what you're saying. So the prosecution did not call Dr. Bennett at all.
No, not even the state did. And so there is no further mention of Dr. Bennett in the trials, which is rather bizarre because he is the first guy to have a look at the bones. So he examined the bones, and this was written up, believe it or not, in the criminal complaint dated November the 15th, 2005. This is the original criminal complaint. And they've got it in beautiful black and white that the bones were shown to Ken Bennett, and he's a retired forensic anthropologist. Now, this is what he said. He identified the bones as being human in nature. Bennett also determined that based on the characteristics of the ilium bone, the bones are from an adult human female.
May I ask a question?
Of course.
Okay, this is going to clear this up a little bit because I see they're asking it as well. If the Dr. Bennett was actually able to qualify the bones belonging to anybody specific, or all he said was female human.
Yep, female human. Now, this is disturbing because when the defense was talking to Eisenberg basically said, look, the way I approach the case is that I start from the beginning. I don't look at what anybody else has said, and I look at the investigation from my perspective. What is disturbing is the following. At no stage does Eisenberg ever state that the pelvic bone found at the quarry is human. She says suspected human, which is in complete contrast to what her colleague Bennett said. You see what I'm trying to say? So she never.
I think you're saying that if she was. Okay, so for the listeners, let's back up. Some of you know the story, but Eisenberg later, after the Halbach case, they found the remains of, they were looking for a pregnant woman, and this remains were found, and Dr. Eisenberg, she validated that in her personal professional opinion that the bones were that of the fetus and it had been removed from the mother. Later, we find out they find the mother fully intact and we're looking at bird bones or something. So when you have another anthropologist that is saying something different, which one do you think I'm going to personally choose? The one that knows their stuff or the
Yeah.
one that misidentifies bones?
Yeah. Well, put it this way: Leslie Eisenberg was under obviously extreme pressure not to say that the pelvic bone was human. You could see what the issue is, right? Because that would confirm the following. It meant that the skeletal remains, let's assume that they belong to Teresa Holbach, the skeletal remains were spread out over a huge area. The burn pit, burn barrel number 2, which is the Dassey burn barrel, and also at the quarry. And we've had a look at the GPS coordinates, haven't we, Rubberducky,
Yeah. Now,
of where those bones are.
yeah, when we look at all this, you guys, what's shocking, and Zellner says this herself, there were no bones burned in Steven Avery's burn pit. No human bones. It was all junk bones, trash. In other words, it was whatever, in my opinion, that they fed the dog at the doghouse. You know, he's chained up to the doghouse. This is where the burn pit is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a dog the size of a German Shepherd and you run a junkyard, how big do you think that chain's going to be that's dragging across the grass, making that all look like a place where, you know,
Yeah.
something happened or occurred?
Yeah. Correct. So what I personally find disturbing is that the very first person who examined the bones was not called up to the stand.
Yeah.
And so Eisenberg was not the first person to have a look at the cremains. So Dr. Bennett very quickly was able to establish that the bones were human, because you can tell, if you're an anthropologist, you can easily tell the difference between a deer bone, for example, and a human bone. The morphology of the bones are completely different. In other words, the structure, the internal structure of the bones are very different. So all they had to do really was to cut open one of the fragments that wasn't as severely burnt, and have a look at the internal structure. You could tell whether it's a human bone or an animal bone. So Dr. Bennett was able to look at the ilium bone and come to the conclusion that it was from an adult human female. That means that the state knew very early on that there was a human female pelvis found at the gravel pit. But they could not get Eisenberg to admit that it was human. She said possibly human. And now we could understand why.
Okay, now let's jump over here and catch up a little bit. We've got the viewers here and the listeners. And John says, yes, it was never proven to be human. So no, but we do have an expert saying it was. And then we also have James. He says no further mention of Dr. Bennett, yet he will have established the ilium bone female, and it came from the Manitowoc gravel pit. Clearly strain, and Buting are incompetent, perhaps complicit. Yeah, complicit is a good word at this point. Says the bones were scattered deliberately in and around the salvage yard. And that's always got me as to why we've got 3 piles. You know, that always bothers me too. Did somebody have an oops with the bucket or something? Then Holy says, was it documented at the trial that the pelvic bone was found at the gravel pit?
Yeah, it's at the gravel pit.
Yeah, and it was talked about in the trial. And that is why Ken Kratz used that to say he wasn't spend 20 seconds on it. Because he said that it was only suspected human bones and it wasn't at Avery's. So we're not going to spend even 20 seconds on it. So in other words, he downplayed everything that worked against his case.
Correct.
Now, Alabama says no coroner on site either. Well, actually, that's not exactly true. So that's a misconception. We did have a coroner. Now let's talk about the coroner for a minute. The Manitowoc County coroner had absolutely nothing to do with the 1985 attempted rape wrongful conviction of Steven Avery, because there was no death noted. So we know that this individual would have no reason to get in the mix. But yet they barred her and they threatened her with arrest if she showed up or any of her team members showed up. But what they did do is they went and got their Calumet County, what was it, Glazer is his name with a K?
Yes.
Glazer. So Glazer kills me to tell you guys this, and it's not something we make up. I know it sounds crazy, but you can't even make this stuff up. Glazer actually played sports in high school with Mike Bushman, the original arresting officer we talked about as we started the live, where he had his dog. He's the canine unit. He goes in 1985 to surround the perimeter while Arland Avery, Steve's uncle, and the other individuals go in to arrest Steven Avery. So Bushman, who played ball with Mike Glazer, they both show up on the Halbach case. Isn't that convenient? So you've got the guy that's wife owns the funeral home coming out of retirement, being the lead. Now talk about conflict of interest. You can't let the coroner on that had nothing to do with the 85 case.
Correct.
But you can get a guy that's totally retired. Now people say, well, he was semi-retired. No, it says in the report that he was retired, and that comes from a law officer, that he was retired. He steps out of retirement. He takes the lead role in finding the cremains, including bones, and he's leading the project. And where does he take them all? Cuss Road. We've been talking for weeks now about Cuss Road, the cul-de-sac, how the dog. Remember through our daily CASO readings, we found out that Brutus the dog, the cadaver dog, walked his way very, very strongly. He was very concentrated and committed to this entire path right to the cul-de-sac, can't cross the line. So when you look at this, why is Bushman allowed to be in this case? But yet the coroner from Manitowoc is barred and threatened arrestment.
But they're all very good questions. But not having the coroner on site caused major problems, and that is there is no proper documentation of the bones, where they were found, their positioning. There's no photographs, and when you think about it, here's an important tidbit. When the box was delivered or when Eisenberg actually saw the bones for the very first time, which was November the 10th, you can see that the bones are basically all together in a box, except there are some plastic bags which are in the box. In those plastic bags are some other bone fragments. I believe they contain the pelvic bone that was examined by Dr. Bennett. So the pelvic bone was separated from the other bone fragments. So Dr. Bennett saw the bones on November the 8th, whereas Leslie saw the bones on November the 10th. Because we have no coroner, we don't have a proper documentation. So we don't even know where these particular bones were found. Luckily, for the pelvic bone and other bones, we've got GPS coordinates.
Yeah.
So we know where they were located. But because there's no coroner, we don't have a proper grid that's drawn out. When they do an archaeological dig, they put a grid. So
when any coroner comes out and investigates something along that lines, that would be how they would tell if the bones were dumped there, by if it was laid in somewhat of a body shape.
Correct.
Correct. And Bumblebee, we both know that, as Dr. Silkman implies that we have a real problem because they didn't bring the coroner in. But I think if we put the other shoe on the foot, I think they would have had more problems had they brought that coroner in. Because
no doubt.
We're talking about some history here. So let's back up.
Because over that fire pit, they would have set up a grid, and they would have found that all the little fragments were all just dumped into the center of it or whatever. or
Yeah.
sprinkled along randomly.
Yeah.
Whereas if it was somebody who was naturally burned there, the legs
Yeah.
would be at the lower half, or, you know,
There was
or
no
cut
there was-
off and laid over the torso, or,
Yeah.
you know,
yeah, there was no intact skeleton.
there would have been orientation for where the ankle was and the knee was,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
Right.
everything was random.
So when you look at this case, and what we're doing in our first part 1 of our mini MaM series is we're trying to establish the root structure of the 2005 case, because we have the same individuals redoing the same thing. So think of it as somebody getting married to the same person twice, in a sense. You have the divorce, and now you're getting remarried again. There would be past history, and believe me, it would affect your new marriage. And so we see them back in, for lack of better words, we see Calumet County back in bed again with the case. And what I mean by that is, here we're talking about Clazer, we're talking about Mike Bushman. They're both in the 2005 case and the 1985, but they're also in another case. And that is the 1999 Ricky Hodgeletter case.
Sure.
So Ricky, for those of you that don't know, I'm going to bring this up a little bit because this is all about the history. This is showing you it's not just this one time that we have Manitowoc behaving suspiciously, okay? We have a young man. He's part of the football team. It's late at night. He decides he's going to go home in the middle of a blizzard. He really doesn't have that far to go. It's in town. He's near a club there, and the Bill Maher Club, and he's leaving there. Now, what happens is Bushman, believe it or not, same guy that in 2005 comes out of retirement to head up the bone research. Complete conflict of interest because he's one of the arresting officers in 1985 with Steven. He also plays a major, major part. And here's how Bushman's role worked in Ricky Hodgeletter's case, which is still unsolved to this day.
Mm-hmm.
He gets hit by a car. Now, Bushman comes along. He's driving. He's on patrol, they say. He sees footprints in the blizzard snowstorm, and he calls them suspicious. He knows he needs to check them out. Now, if they're footprints, do you really want to leave the scene? No, he does. He's got to go get some gas. So apparently, he has to drive right past the accident to go get gas. I kid you not. He's supposedly getting gas. 3 minutes it takes him to respond to the crime scene. He gets back, and there's Ricky, who's been hit by a hit and run. Now, there was a lot of rumors within its own department at Manitowoc. There were deputies and employees that were actually accusing the higher ups. So here's your familiar names from the 1985 case. Now, I know we're jumping ahead to 1999, but we're still looking at some familiar names. We're looking at Peterson. We're looking at Herman, Robert Herman, who owns the Cleveland Auto Salvage or Auto Sales and Salvage Yard. We're looking at him. All these people are being brought into it. And guess what? Guess who's in charge? Who gets put in charge of the entire investigation? Bushman.
Yeah.
Bushman. And who does he hand it off to? Colburn. Now, when Ricky Hodgeletter's mom, Deb, she goes ahead, she calls Manitowoc, and she wants to talk to somebody. She gets a hold of Lieutenant James Link. And she says to him, I think you guys aren't having any luck. We gave you pieces of the vehicle that were found outside our driveway that most likely are off the hit and run vehicle that killed my son. Have you thought of calling DCI, Department Correctional Investigations for Wisconsin? Because I think they need to get in this. And Link tells her, already did that. They're not interested. Well, Deb waits for a while. She goes down there. She's got Colburn and Link. They're opening the file. She asks to see the file. All the important pieces are gone. There's no evidence about the pieces she gave. They're gone. Disappeared. Just like the bones in this case. Poof. And she says, All right, guys, I'm going to go home with this. I'm going to study it myself a little bit. She gets home, ring, 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 DCI. She calls Department Correctional Investigation herself. They've never heard of Linker Colburn or this case.
Yeah. Basically, it's the same players and it's the same MO. That's what it is.
With the same behaviors.
Absolutely right.
You know,
You can see it.
With no oversight and
None.
no one to stop them from doing everything that they want to do when they want to do it.
Right.
None.
Whether they're not supposed to be there or not, it doesn't matter. They don't care which ones of their rules, their own laws that they break. It's just us that can't break their laws.
yeah.
Correct. But the you have to admit, the first critical thing was to prevent the coroner from coming on site.
Why?
They
He could
did
have done what James said. He could. The coroner. What good was he? What good was that coroner going to do? Because all that coroner's going to do is kick the body, right?
Actually,
Lord
that
mercy.
is
That's
it's completely
They wanted to keep
disrespectful.
someone who was truthful out of the picture.
Correct.
oh yeah. Actually, I call her Catch because I can't say her last name, but Deb Catch, the Manitowoc coroner, she shows up at the crime scene of the Ricky Hotchletter case. Now, here's the theory or the rumor that was going around their own department was that actually one of their own had originally hit this boy with their vehicle. And when they called to get backup to see what to do, the other individual supposedly, according to what we've heard rumors on, now there's no paperwork that I've ever seen on this, but this is what was surfacing in the Manitowoc County Department that caused DCI to get involved, was they stated that the second individual arriving and responding to the scene didn't realize Ricky was in the road and ran him over again, drugged him over 200 feet. Now, when Catch shows up, she stated, according to rumor, and I say rumor because we don't have anything on paper, but this has been the standing rumor for a long time and nobody's debunked it, is that she stated, hey, if I find out that the second individual, not the hit and run person, but the second individual killed him like he was alive, I will press charges Manitowoc County or not. So if that really occurred, you could take that information and see where she wasn't going to play any bad games. She was going to be on the up and up and she was going to do her job. And what do we see? Banner, get her out of there.
Yep, they didn't want her anywhere near this with the Hallback case. Yep.
Correct. So we've got the disgusting situation whereby we don't have proper documentation of the crime scene, and one of the officers, or one, I think I've forgotten his name. He was asked during the trial, well, why haven't you photographed the fire pit with the bones? And he stated, well, we don't take pictures of something that's obviously been disturbed. So in other words, we don't have any proper in situ photographs or documentation of how things were before anyone touched them.
Also, that
yeah.
implies, I'll just say it, is it coincidence or suspicion? It implies to me suspicion that both that person as well as Eisenberg both reported that when the crime scene had been disturbed at that level, they're not going to document it. Well, that to me means that they knew these bones had been moved from
Correct.
their original location.
Correct.
That's identified. That's even the prosecution calling out bones being planted. They're not calling out who did it, but even the prosecution saying that the bones are planted. Well, that's nefarious as heck.
Yeah, it is. The mere fact that you don't find one intact skeletal structure in one spot is highly suspicious. Now, remember, if you look at what Brendan testified to, or confessed to, we put her body in the fire pit and, we watched it burn. Well, that clearly cannot be the case because there are many of the bones in the Dassey burn barrel There are also human bones at the Manitowoc gravel pit. Now, how are these bones going to shift from one location to the next, and how they're going to shift off the Avery salvage yard? Now, I've never heard of a murderer who plants evidence so overtly in his own backyard. Have you?
No.
It's
If you're
utterly
going
ridiculous. You're gonna move it. You're gonna move it to get rid of it, so it's
Correct.
not at your house. Be
Correct.
for real. And
Correct.
if you're such a master cleaner and DNA remover,
Correct.
then why is that only available inside buildings? You can't do that outside, or what?
Yeah, it's completely insane. And what's even worse is that the Zona has experts, has used experts who have actually cremated human bodies, and they've looked at all sorts of conditions in terms of fuel load, time taken to cremate a body, because what we do know is we know the result of the murder. We know how the bones look like, right? Because they've gathered up the bones.
they're beyond anything that anybody's going to do. And I'm not a medical doctor and I'm not an anthropologist, but I'll tell you right now, we have grilled out and we've ended up throwing the bones in the fire when we were done eating our steak. Just threw them in the fire, and they burnt for months all summer long. And I mean, some very hot things. And they still, you can't just take your poker and break them into pieces. These bones are pulverized.
They are pulverized. That's correct.
Well, actually, they look very much like cremation bones.
Well, actually,
before they're ground up in the superfine grounders.
They do look like they've been cremated, but the important point to realize is that the bones after cremation have received trauma. So someone actually went to the point of not only cremating the body, but they smashed the bones after cremation. So this is the most bizarre murder I've ever heard of, whereby
I myself, I haven't physically tested it, but I think if you took really, really hot bones and threw them on dry ice, you'd get a similar thing.
I thought that happened too.
Well, we have a shattering of the bones.
But spring's coming, so we can find out.
Yeah, well, put it this way: whatever happened to the skeletal remains was horrendous. So whoever did it did not want the identity of the skeleton to be found out, and it really was just a complete fluke that a little bit of muscle tissue had remained on one of the bones, BZ. Otherwise, it's likely that unless they test the bone, we would have never found out whose skeletal remains they belong to.
And we still haven't.
Yeah.
Correct. You are correct.
Okay, guys, what I want to do here is I want to jump back to 1985 and I want to talk about what took place with Steven. So think of this, you guys, because I want to make sure that with part one, we're really connecting dots here. So first of all, Steven is arrested immediately, and they don't allow him to have phone calls. They don't allow him to contact his lawyer. They don't contact his lawyer, and he's in a lockdown situation and muted right away. So, that's already against his human rights. Right off the get-go in 1985, they absolutely have removed the human right to be able to get in contact with somebody that can help you. And so he's basically, for lack of better words, he's put in a hole and held. And the things that we see with that, the biggest problems I see with that is it states where they stand from the get-go. They're not there to play fair. They're not there to obey the law. They're there for targeting Steven Avery. Now, this is going to get a little touchy, but in order... Oh, thank you so much, LL Grace, from the bottom of our heart. We appreciate it. We do use the funding a lot on this case. We do pay for the library, and we pay for a lot of other things, and we appreciate all the help we can get.
Thank you, LL Grace. Thank you.
So you guys, when you look at this case and you look at Steve Avery back then, let's talk about Gregory Allen. Dennis Vogel had already, now he's the DA that did prosecuted Steven Avery as well as Gregory Allen. Now, Dennis Vogel had already prosecuted Gregory Allen for sexual related crimes, so he was well aware of it. This is a day where they're so worried about Gregory Allen that they're babysitting him all day, and this is the day that they don't pay any attention to him.
And Steve has what, 13, 16 witnesses, a cash register receipt, and a checkout girl.
Well, not only that, when they say 16 people that are eyewitnessing, it wasn't a random eyewitnessing where they might have seen him. So Steve goes down and he is actually working with some hired third-party people, a company that has shown up. I don't know what they were doing. I want to say they were pouring cement or something. I can't remember.
One of the buildings at Avery's salvage yard.
Okay.
Yeah, they were pouring cement.
For the new shop or something.
This isn't people that are related to Stephen. They're not even friends with this man. They're working alongside of him when this would have taken place. There is no way for a human to be in two places. So
can you even imagine? Can you imagine being that person and knowing you have to back up where you were and that these people saw you, and you have all that lined out, and then this?
And then you still go to prison.
I can tell you this much. It had to have been a most unbelievable moment because you just got the most impressive thing in the world, which is a family. Your world is turning out good and you're getting on the good foot and you're doing things right. And then the next thing you know, you're now being convicted of attempted murder.
With the whole rooms full of people worth of witnesses.
But what does Manitowoc County do? 1999, they get the call. They found a note. Innocent Project opened up Steven Avery's file in 2002. And do you know what was in it? A note with Gregory Allen's name on it.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot was done wrong. There's no question about that. A lot was done wrong. And it's the same, you can see that it's the same MO with the Teresa Holbach. But I want to say is that there's got to be greater, grander reasons for all of this. And yes, the $36 million civil lawsuit played a major role, but he didn't have that civil lawsuit going with the Gregory Allen case, but yet he was targeted and aggressively so.
But he was going to court at that time for screwing around with the cop's wife and a cop's toddler.
Yeah. Yes, I agree.
Blue line and all, you know.
Well, and what really has always bothered me, and I'm not trying to ever talk poor about a victim. I am not. But to do victimology is how you can sometimes bring them justice. So I was doing a little bit of victimology on Penny Bernstein. And here's the complication. I came upon something I just can't shake. And that is, in the report on Penny Bernstein, her husband said that he called the police department in 15 minutes from the time she left. Let me ask you something. If you're going to go jog on the beach and you're going to be back in a little bit, at what point do you jump immediately to calling the police? Literally, the police were there with him instantly before.
Yeah, I don't think I would have been that on the ball.
She didn't even get a chance to suggest to call the cops. Nobody got the chance to see the victim and call the police. It actually happened just like it does in the case in 2005. It's always the cart before the horse. So Penny doesn't come back after a few minutes. The husband goes looking for her with the cops. So the cops are there before anybody knows that she's...
I mean, and I'm a watcher, and I watch the kids when they're growing up. I watch people when we go out to a party. I watch everybody. And I don't think I would have called that fast, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, and Ashley's got a great point. Ashley Holt says, plus he already committed she's talking Gregory Allen, committed the same, she says, same crime, same very close crime. What the F? People say he was framed over a $36 million suit. I don't agree. He was framed in 85 for no reason. No, I have to disagree. I actually do. Here's why. I want you guys, this is where I was going to go with this. It's a bad place to go, but in order to understand the case, we have to look at it from all angles. So we're going to put on our 1985 Bushman and Herman shoes. Are you guys ready for this?
Yes.
All right.
Ready.
You guys are working at the shop late at night, or actually be early in the morning. And in comes one of your deputies who just tells you that a guy has pulled a shotgun or a rifle or some long gun on your wife and run her off the road and ordered her to get into your
And
car.
almost left your baby there for dead.
Right. She complained she had her child in the car. He let her go. But she said, I'll come back. I'll come back. Let me get rid of the kid. I'll come back. Just don't hurt the baby. And he was like, fine. Okay, now, what I think occurred at that moment, when you look at the makeup of a cop and the times that the ones that have come forth and said that they planted evidence and done nefarious things, they all have the same kind of consensus, and that is that they already,
I deserved it.
yep, the guy already deserved it. They felt he was guilty for it. And what did they find him guilty of? A depraved mind when he burnt the cat. So before anything occurs with the whole Sandra thing, the cops already know in their mind that they're dealing with a depraved mind. Now, what would have happened?
The cat again.
So Sandra, she comes back. She's a barfly. She tells everybody this herself. You got the boys club that Bagoda, somebody in the crowd has mentioned. He's talked about this boys club. Okay, so Sandra's at the bar. She's telling all this. She's also at the police station. She's giving reports, and she's talking about the idea that she barely got away. Now, I know we don't want to do it, but we got to do it. And that is, what was Steven Avery going to do if the child wasn't along when he said, get in my car? And he's got her at gunpoint. Now, this is where the cops' minds went, you guys. They're like, oh, and they're probably all sitting around, wallowing this through their mind, thinking, oh my God, what the hell was he going to do? Well, he was probably going to crush her car. The other one probably was going to beat and rape her. Next one probably was going to stab her. Well, I think he was going to do this. I think he was going to do that. So in their mind, they had already found him guilty in their mind of everything he would have done if he had the opportunity without that child there. That's where I believe that the Manitowoc cops got this. And I think that they weren't worried about that 36 million. And that's what Ashley Holt's talking about. There was a vendetta, kind of like a Hatfield and McCoy. And they thought they had the right to do that because they thought they were protecting the world from somebody that was going to pull people at gunpoint and do all the things they had thought.
And besides victimology or whatever, also, Sandra, besides being a barfly, also, I believe, way exaggerated the story she was saying about him. First of all, it was winter.
I do too.
I don't believe he had his junk out. And she even exaggerates, I'm sure, the size of his junk when she does her little demonstration in court. So she tends to exaggerate. So she could have exaggerated what happened between him and her.
To be honest,
yeah. She was a catalyst. She was a catalyst. I think she had an opportunity to use to her benefit.
He says, come on, this was during winter in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
How is he naked outside on the roof of his car? He'd be frozen to it. Okay.
Well, also, we all know what happens in cold weather. She wouldn't have seen nothing.
Nothing. It would have been larger than normal. And he's a little guy, so please. It kind of leads me to believe that she didn't see his junk.
Let's jump over.
Sorry.
Allie?
Okay, I can't do it. We have to move on because I can't.
I
was as cleaned up as I could do it.
Yeah.
Let's go on.
Allie Glipsy says, small towns have their secrets and some of the cops are just crap. Like my small town, some of the cops are scumbags and some are not. Their way of justice isn't right. But who are we to say anything? Who are we to say something? I'll tell you, we are those that stand up against those that are wrongfully convicted. We are the ones that are fighting against this, where other people think that they can bully the rest of us. Now, maybe we don't live up financially to their expectations. Maybe we don't have the same education as other people. I don't even have any type of education with law. I don't have any medical background other than I could pass medication. I know medication. I am certified that way. I absolutely have no PI experience. I'm not an attorney. But can I dig in this case? You bet. I don't think that the law enforcement understand that just because they have a badge does not protect them from the public keeping an eye on things. And if anything, this case is showing that if you're dirty and we find out, it will be plastered everywhere.
If they were extra sticking it to him, they're used to getting away with it. They could have never had foresight, short of having a time machine, that we were going to look at this.
Right? And so
any of it.
And so if you're a cop and you're out there and you're not doing the things right, just like them, you don't know who's going to jump on the case and start digging in. And no, you may not lose your job, but I will tell you what, people are going to know what you did just like we know what they did. We know that they have railroaded and targeted Steven. They have railroaded and targeted Brendan. It's absolutely, there's nothing to prove anymore. First of all, everything looks staged, and that sounds stupid. But if you really look at the case, Zellner calls these people actresses and actors. She talks about there were no human bones in Steven's burn pit, that they were in the burned barrel. We look at a staged event that never even took place in that trailer, never took place in that garage. That RAV is all covered up funny in the right color. That looks completely staged, no matter how you filter it out. There's no guilters anymore trying to tell us that this isn't staged. So
I'm sure there probably are somewhere.
Yeah, they're not on our. They know we'll chew them up and spit them out because we're obviously do more than just watch the video.
I think the whole thing is fake and staged, and I don't even think. I think it's a fake victim too.
Well, when you look at this case and you look at where the dogs are drawing all of us, they're drawing us there. They're pulling us to a place. We all get pulled away from Avery, even with Kraft's own testimony, because we know what he was doing with those bones now. We know he was pulling us away from the original type of crime. I'm not saying it's the place where she was originally murdered, but I am going to say the victim, whoever they are, and until we get those bones back and test them, I'm just going to say victim. Whoever the victim of those bones are, the dogs led us right to the place where they have the crime lab, where they've got DCI, where they've got the black vehicles, all the same kind, 4 of them in a row, where we've got bushmen, everybody down there, all hands on deck, and we've got a ginormous black burn spot, which what appears to be cylinder type things surrounding this black spot, which could be burn barrels. We don't know. We've got a sea green, kind of bluish green vehicle at the top of Cuss Road there. And yet Sheriff Pogel himself tells the Julie Kramer, I believe, was what was the dog's name again?
Dog handler, not Loop. The other one wasn't
Brutus. Yeah. Nope, you can't bring the cadaver dog back here because it's a crime scene. I just want to go like beat my head on the wall when I hear that.
Isn't that what they're for? Crime scene?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's kind of what the idea is.
That's what I thought the reason what the dogs were.
And they're the experts.
Right.
So let's grab a couple more. Let's jump down here. James Barlow says, the student, son of Badger football coach Barry Alvers, one microwaved a kitten. Oh God, I'm not even going to read that. I'm sorry, I can't think about that. That's horrible. Let's go ahead, and Barry says, James Barlow, me either the millions he was suing for a land grab. Avery is sort of after, and then there's threatened with the gun in the beginning, his cousin who married the cop. The list continues. There is a huge deal with the land. Whether you are under the impression or you believe it or not, Avery owns not just a few acres, but 40 acres there, and then over, I want to say it was 130 in Cribbets. Now, the acre where the salvage yard was is in a prime location. And when I say prime,
Quarries.
the state of Wisconsin had begun a massive $1 billion project. And this project made 36 million look like nothing. And in that project, they're contracting all of these contractors that do the quarry pits to do minerals as well as to store these huge wind turbine units for a cleaner way to live, which is our wind turbine. In order for
And they were also ordering Google wind maps over that area at that time.
True. Now, when you look at this, we have a problem. You've got Rodant's land kind of curves around almost completely around Steven Avery's property. But what we really don't find is any evidence of Rodant's property. But there's one tiny little, I think it's 9 acres of Michael's quarry. We do find something there. We find a long bone, according to the investigator, that had flesh attached, that disappears in evidence. Right, poof, gone. He collects it, writes a report, and then he's asked about it, and he testifies he doesn't know where that went after he turned it in. Then the only other place that you find bone that we're talking about is actually the Manitowoc Quarry. Now, how did Josh Rodant's land get skipped? I mean, isn't that kind of funny that we have a donut shape around Steve Avery? 90% of all the land is Rodant. We've got 2 little 5% slivers. And I'm just saying, doesn't it feel strange that, the theory would go that if you did something, you wouldn't put it on your own property, right?
Correct.
But yet we find it on the other 3 properties that are touching Rodant's. We find Michael Quarry, we find a long bone with flesh. Michael's Materials, actually, it was called, not Michael Quarry. Then you get to the Manitowoc Quarry, we find the pelvic bone that Dr. Bennett, that he identified as female human. And
Correct.
then the rest of the human bones are found in the burn barrel of Dassey's.
Yeah.
And it's not even located near the gravel pit, the burn pit near Stephen. Those were still in their original location. Okay, let's go ahead. We're going to go for just about 3 more minutes here. We'll grab a few more questions. I want to thank you guys for staying tuned and watching this video with us. The Mini MaM has been a project for us for many months, as you can see. This is one of many, many, many that we have done. We tried to make sure and didn't hurry through it, even though we were excited to share it, because we wanted to bring the past and the present to commingle, because you really do need to realize it's exactly like being married to someone, in this case in 1985, divorcing them, and then remarrying them in 2005. The backlog of history and what happened matters greatly in how the relationship is formed and what takes place. And then you can slide right in the middle of that. You've got another victim. So in 1985, we have 2 victims there. We have Steven Avery and we have Penny Bernstein. Then in 1999, we have the Ricky Hotchletter case as a victim. Then in 2005, we have Teresa Halbach and Carmen Botwell as victims. And when you look at these victims, they all have something in common. Every single one of them. And that is suspicion, not coincidence, suspicion. So much so that we even see the DCI come out in the Ricky Hotchletter case. So it's not just us. It's not just the world looking in. It's other people found things not right. When your own department is drawing suspicion on their own boss, and their boss is saying that they know more to the story, and they believe somebody within the force has actually killed this young man. And then Deb takes all that incriminating evidence and turns it into these individuals, and that evidence disappears. You see the same thing happen here. You see in 2005, evidence just disappearing, or we can't even get it. And, Dr. Siltman, he brought up the best question in the world right at the top. Why? Why are they hiding the bones? Why are they hiding the identity?
Well,
Why are they taking away pieces out of the file and making Deb never know or have any, somebody else take it. I'm frustrated.
it will.
All they'd have to simply do is hand over the bones that were in Steven's burn pit, supposedly, and have them tested with that Andy system. And by God, if they come back, Teresa Hawbucks, they could say, there you go. See, it's all over with. We got our man.
That won't happen. That's not going to be the result, I don't believe.
It's all they'd have to do. If it's like they say it is and it's all up front, then why don't they just simply do that and give them? I'd be signing up as quick as I could to hand them bones over.
Because it sounds probably like they know that it is not her.
Exactly.
The biggest problem?
Exactly.
I'm going to go out on a limb here, you guys. I'm going to tell you, I'm not trying to judge anybody, but this comes to mind. It isn't just about your daughter. It isn't just about your daughter. So even if you can somehow stomach not knowing, the problem is that if you're wrong and those are not your daughter's bones and you do not know who the killer is, you have purposely perpetuated a killer on the loose, and you are responsible for everything he has after that moment. And what do we see with Gregory Allen, you guys? They throw Steve out. They throw Steve Avery. I almost said Steve Allen. They throw Steve Avery in the clink for obviously something he had no chance of doing. 16 alibis later. And what did they do? He went on, Gregory Allen, to rape and continue to abuse and do horrible things to the public. Now, that's a rapist. That's bad enough. But we're not dealing with a rapist anymore. We're dealing with a murderer. And is this person the first person? Is this victim, whoever they may be, the first one that he's murdered? Are they worried that if we get the bones, we'll find more than one victim?
I think they know that she's alive.
Are they worried that we'll find out she's alive?
I think they know that she's alive.
But that's true, Bibi, but we can end all the speculation, can't we? Very easily. This is the frustrating thing. Like I said, from a scientific point of view, it makes no sense whatsoever. Let's get rid of the smoke and mirrors. Okay, let's get rid of the smoke and mirrors. Let's have a look at what bones remain. I would test every one of them. I would test every one of them.
None of the bones that are left are human. All the human bones, or even thought to be maybe human, were given
to be human.
Yeah, that's correct. So in 2011,
the chicken bones that were laying by the dog pen. There's no point.
They want chicken wings.
It's human, and I don't even want to open that up to the state. That is absolutely not an option. The problem is if you look at this on a legal standpoint, they have violated the human right of an individual to seek freedom from wrongful conviction, which is what the 1985 Steve Avery bill was about.
That's right.
Sure.
And so the human rights, it's not about just solving this. It's about also getting another victim out from under the thumb of the repressor. And there's two of them. And that's Brendan and Steven. And Brendan has nothing to do with any of this, and they absolutely know it. They know it.
I think the proof of that it is very, very obvious in that little video that I did the other day. One can clearly see that he was highly suggestible, and if he was able to simply agree with the observations of the bus driver, which clearly could not have happened because his brother was there as well. So both boys walked down, they saw no one, yet Brendan's recollections were swayed based upon what the bus driver had stated. and what O'Neill had stated as well. So if he's suggestible, one can clearly show that he was very easily manipulated. And if you fed him factoids, eventually you got a story out of him which had no basis in reality, no basis in proof. There was nothing to prove it. It was a coerced and false confession. And he essentially gave the script from Kiss the Girls. Now, Kiss the Girls, by the way, was not something that came out of the air. It came from Brendan's own lips. He mentioned that particular, he said book, but he mentioned that in the trial, right? So it's
Yep.
not something plucked out randomly. He specifically mentioned the book. And Bron and I, we did that little video, and oh my God, the pattern matching is 100% accurate to what he
Yeah.
was feeding the police. So in that
Well,
case,
you know what, Silkman?
yes,
In that, you were explaining that whole thought process that in the book, as well as the movie,
yeah,
there was two killers and one was a cop. Now,
correct,
put yourself in
correct.
the mind of Brendan, who's read this book, and he's got them cops sitting right there, and they're saying to him, "We know what really happened." What do you think Brendan was thinking about them cops?
Yeah, yeah. Brendan had no idea in the end who to trust, who to believe. It
Or
was a
one of them was the
terrible,
killer themselves. I mean, we've even had moments, I know each of us have,
yeah,
where whether you say it or you speak it doesn't matter. We've all had a moment where we're like, holy crap, did the cops just do this murder? So
yeah,
if we've had that, Brendan was on the inside around these evil people.
yeah, yes. Yeah. But you have to admit, Rubberducky, at the end of the day, I can't believe that mature adults with a functioning brain didn't realize that what Brendan was saying was simply a fantasy. There was no basis, there was no corroboration, absolutely nothing. But you see, law enforcement could not change their mind. They had to run with the story because their ultimate prize was to ensure that Stephen was placed in prison.
Yeah.
Right? So, in a
They had
way,
a choice. I can't agree to that. They absolutely had a choice not to participate. Quit your job and go work somewhere else if they're requiring you.
I honestly believe that they all had tunnel vision.
yes,
I think they had more than tunnel vision. I think that they actually were nefariously working off of planting what they wanted this individual to say. And he wasn't exactly understanding what they wanted from him. He was trying his best to say whatever it was so that he could get back to class. But they actually had to work around, back engineer it in a way. The evidence wasn't there. So what they have to do is they have to wait and they have to be like, okay, so where did he shoot her? And he's like, oh, I don't know. Well, come on, think. They need it to be in a specific place. It's the
If you
control.
look, if people will go and look and listen to every single thing that they ever recorded about any conversation they had with him that we know of, every single time in the end, it did not matter what he said. They continued to badger him. He got worked over.
yeah,
We've come across a lot of things in this, but one thing that got left out of ever having a conversation about it publicly is the idea that cops have tasers. And I'm just going to say, what if an individual had a taser and they pulled her over saying she had a broken headlight or parking light? How hard would it have been to do that? Knock her out so when she's tased, throw her in the RAV, push it aside, and then wait for backup. I'm just saying.
yeah. I know. I mean, it is speculation, but
Absolutely.
unfortunately, anything in this case can happen, as we've seen.
Right.
It
Right.
is it's extremely bizarre.
I mean, come on. We could, if we sat around and tossed around all these ideas,
Sure.
We couldn't make this shit up, okay?
Make this stuff up. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh.
Babies living on CASO Road. Yeah, one day, you guys.
I completely didn't even hear that one.
We were all in the puddle chat on Discord, and we were all talking and everything, and Jeff came on, and he's been on our live chats before, and he was teasing BB because she was kind of swearing here and there, because on YouTube we don't, but it does happen from time to time. People slip, and on Discord, and BB was swearing, and Jeff said, BB, I think you live on Cuss Road, or were born on Cuss Road. It was so funny, you guys. Took me a minute to figure out what he was saying, and then I got it. I was like, that's priceless.
No, I got it right away. Yeah.
Okay, before we wrap up, because we're already getting pretty far into this. Is
Check
there
your
anything?
comments.
Yeah, let's check comments here. Allie says, she says, it's like you said, so true, but somebody had to stand up for what's right. Love what y'all are doing for this whole case. I think Steven Avery's innocent and Brandon Dassey needs help. And James Barlow says, if the people of Wisconsin were as upright and decent as they constantly reminding themselves they are, they would have dynamited and torched the county courthouse years ago. Well, we're activists, but we do it with words, and that's why we're on this channel. I'm from Wisconsin, and we have two other researchers from Wisconsin, and we live very close to the ground zero. That's all I'll say.
Close enough, anyway.
The way to fight it, you guys, is public awareness. That's what they used against Steven Avery in the 2005 case, and that's absolutely what they used in 2006 or 2007, I should say, during the trial. Is they used public awareness to give them the wrong information to poison the jury pool. And King Kratz was looked at by a lot, almost all of the other attorneys on this planet, and they all shook their head. What the hell is he doing?
Yeah,
because they knew what he was doing. They had never even written a law about it where you weren't supposed to do that, because they just didn't think anybody had such low understanding of what that could do. And so King Kratz went out there and painted this horrific story, made all kinds of claims. So did Jerry Pogel, the sheriff. They lied to the public every time they went on the television. And when they lied like that, it became an understanding that that's fact then, even if there was nothing to back it up. And why are they bringing into the court all these photographs, and they're bringing in PowerPoints? But yet, where's the actual evidence? If there was real evidence, why isn't the evidence shown in the case?
Rubberducky, can I just make a conclusion? This might be the first time that a DA has read out the script of a major film on live TV, because that's exactly what he did. That's exactly what he did.
Himself. It gets to the point where,
who's saying that Brendan was the only one that was watching it on television that week?
Correct.
Maybe I'm wondering if when they had him in Fox Hills at that hotel, if they were like, hey, Brendan, sit down in this room and wait on us, and then they just went and hit play, came back and said, now you know what we want to hear.
Well, the irony is, I checked, Fox Hills definitely had cable TV. We know that that film was being shown during that time period. How ironical would it have been if Fassbender, Wiegert, and Brendan were all watching Kiss the Girls?
How ironic or suspicious would it be? The information prior to, the first few interviews, Brendan held his own quite well. And he was like, no, I don't remember seeing her. No. Yeah. I was talking to Blaine. I that. No, it wasn't working. And so, they've got him in a hotel. They like to leave the office and go talk. Well, hell, just go ahead and put the movie on, let it roll, come back in and say, no, Brendan, we need to hear something from you, and we need to understand how she died. Well, they just fed him the story. What does he do? He tells us everything that happened in that movie.
Yeah, he did.
And then when he's asked in the end, where'd you get this from? On the trial stand?
Yeah.
He says, from a book. And what book would that have been, Dr. Silkman?
Yeah, Kiss the Girls. And
Yeah.
remember,
And in that whole area over there, for like 2 months, that thing played a lot of times.
yes,
Right. And the thing that you also have to consider is if they are trying to get Brendan to align with them, they need to have the master script pre-written. So I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say, hypothetically, totally out of my own brain here. So, it's not anything written or you're going to get a document on. How easy would it have been for them to simply go, hey, I got an idea how we can make this work. We need Brendan to give us a script that we can make happen. We can put the pieces where they be and all that kind of stuff. We've already established that we've got the vehicle. We've got the blood in the vehicle. We need a rape established. We need torture established to get Steven. Let's feed Brendan some thought process here. And then we can say to him things like, play the video in your head, Brendan.
that's what they said to him.
That,
Yes.
that is
Yeah.
what they said.
Yeah.
That's
So
exactly
what
what.
video,
Picture it like you're watching a movie.
Yeah.
what video is that guy talking?
It's what I said when I first seen it. Remember, I had a fit over that one.
Yep. That's
Yeah.
exactly what they said to him.
Point does an investigator tell a child to play a video in their head? I mean, that's outright basically saying you've watched something. Now play it over and tell me it back. I mean, there's no more coincidences. It's either nefarious or suspicious in my book. Coincidences come in twos and threes. We're looking at too many to even think of. I can't use the word coincidence and I can't use the word confession any longer. There was no confession. It was a complete coercion. It wasn't even a coercion confession. It was just a coercion. He was simply repeating what they said. Why did 2 months prior, all of a sudden they've got to tape all this stuff? Why? Because they wanted to make sure that they didn't have to do any investigative work with Brendan. You know why? No evidence. Scientifically cannot prove that child did one thing wrong. So they cannot investigate. In order to take and turn him from a witness that would have spared Steven, and he would have been walking out in town now buying groceries and roasting marshmallows,
Yeah.
they absolutely had to turn one of the Dassey boys. They had already been at home in 2004. They had a sexual investigation there, not related to Brendan Dassey or Bobby. They had a sexual investigation, and the vehicle of Barb, which Steven was driving, got burned on Xander Road. Now, you tell me, how did it feel for those same players to get in that home and see how all these people got investigated, how they handle pressure, how they turn on each other or don't, who's loyal, who's easy to push? They already were making out the profile of the Dassey and Avery families. They were able to question every single one of them, and they knew how they responded to police before they got to the Halbach thing.
Well, correct. And don't forget the difference between how Blaine responded compared to Brendan. Blaine held his own. Blaine had his mother present with him, remember, in the hotel where Skalinsky and other investigators were talking to him a day prior to talking to Brendan. And Blaine said, nope, I didn't see anyone. And the investigators got angry.
One time.
They got angry. The
Blaine
investigators
had his
got
boss
angry.
with him one time also.
Correct.
And like you pointed out, Dr. Silkman, Blaine and Brendan, you got to consider them as one set of eyes when they get off the bus. Whatever Brendan saw, Blaine saw.
Correct.
Now, Blaine, he holds his own. He's like, no, there was no girl. I didn't see her. So guess what? Neither did Brendan, because one of them is not going to visually see a girl off in a field taking pictures. I don't know why they said off in a field, but they did. And then the other kid not see it at all. You either have the kids saw it or the kids didn't see it. And we know they did. And then you have Mama Avery coming over 15 minutes after the fact that the victim has left, according to Steven, and so has Bobby's vehicle. Okay. Mama Avery drives her golf cart over. She grabs the mail. Now, why is that important? Because that's what they said Brendan was doing, is getting mail. Now, she does this at about 3 o'clock. She comes over. He comes outside the trailer. He sits on it, and he remembers listening to music, radio on the wagon with Mom. Now, at what point did he have the Rav? Where did he have the Rav? Where did he have the girl? I mean,
Correct.
you know, if Brendan can hear her screaming
Yeah.
outside the trailer, so is
Questions.
Mama Avery. Okay, questions. First of all, I want to do a shout out for Eric Cozy jumping on our channel. We appreciate that. He works all the time on this case and
Very
every
passionate. Very passionate.
very passionate. Every time he gets on there, he's bringing public awareness, and we appreciate all of him and his guests very much. And we appreciate you coming on our channel.
And he came to Australia.
Yes, and so
Yeah.
Yeah.
let's see here. Let's grab a few of these if you don't mind. James Crane, you are correct because they are trained that way. They just use their training in reverse. That's right. Holy moly says any forensic expert would also say that. Jeff says Brendan got the screw job of all time. Yeah, he did. Rachel says BS tunnel vision. Nope, they are deliberately doing this. High five, Rachel. I agree with you. I believe it's intent. No record at Fox Hill. BS. Yep. And then Sammy says they had one agenda. My story says, why wasn't Blaine on the stand? We're going to pause there. That's a great question. Do you know why I think Blaine wasn't on the stand? Because he threw the state story in the dump.
Yes, he did. He did. But if I could just interject a little bit, Rubberducky, I know we're moving on.
Absolutely.
The important thing is this: in the trials they completely avoided the bus driver's testimony. So they knew they had timing issues with what Brendan said. So the way they dealt with it was that they completely avoided it. So they knew that what Brendan was telling them in terms of his timing did not make any sense. And you can sense that Fassbender became very upset because he couldn't understand, well, what the hell is Teresa doing outside for an hour talking to Stephen, taking photographs, and no one else saw this?
You know, also, Dr. Silkman and BB and anybody else on this call here, I want to go over the fact that we touched on something that we really didn't even expand on too much when we were in Discord or in the research lab. So it's kind of off the cuff here. But that being said, I found it interesting that one of Brendan's first accounts when he changed his story actually was what Bobby had reported, which is Brendan stated
Correct.
he was
Correct.
looking from the window. So, you know,
Yeah.
it makes a person wonder if what was going on in that house. So if you were in the Dassey residence and Stephen's been arrested for the murder of Teresa Halbach,
Yeah.
he's also been arrested for the firearms in his home too. You know, there's some timeline between Stephen being arrested on the 9th of November all the way till when Brendan's arrested, what, in March, correct?
Yeah. 1st of March.
1st of March. So you're looking at some time where Brendan's a very quiet kind of fella. You know, he really is a yeah kind of guy or no. And I think he becomes wallpaper in that house. And if any of us have went through hell in our lives, whether you went through a divorce or whether somebody in your family member has went through a death or a trauma, children become invisible when the kitchen gets real hot.
Yeah.
And the only thing you want the children to do is to go play or go out of earshot, whatever. But the children that don't make noise are often the ones that witness the whole thing play out and you don't even realize it. And so if the parents, if Barb and Scott and Bobby and Blaine are tossing this all around and they're working out details, and we know that there's a lot of lies told in this case, so they're trying to get their
There
story
is.
figured out to
There
dig
is.
themselves out of a hole. Brendan's
Yeah.
listening to it all.
Yeah.
So by the
There is.
time Brendan gets on the stand, not only does he come up with the book, but we all know there had to have been a lot of, how do I put it, speculation as to what had really taken place with the victim.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would
Unfortunately.
think so.
Yeah.
I would think
Unfortunately.
you would hear
Yeah.
a lot of talk about it in his house.
Yep. And
More than he
unfortunately, no one.
probably even needed to hear.
Yeah. No one could get.
Oh, yeah.
No one could get their story straight. There is a lot of contradictions.
Right. My story wrote, what about the dogs too? How on earth was it ignored? TH's scent was all over the quarry.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
The dogs hit on the conveyor system. A lot of people think it's conveyor road, but it says conveyor unit. So we know that that is the rock quarry conveyor, and that is to push.
Conveyor belt that takes the gravel the rocks up into the air and drops them down into the crusher.
And the
Yeah,
bones were gravel size, by the way. They were,
it
they
is.
were, they were tiny
They're
fragments. They were
pulverized.
fragments. They were
You
pulverized,
know,
correct.
I'm going to tell you guys every single day for the last month. I have walked through this case doing research and making mini MaMs, doing research with the other researchers. We all have passions, we all go different directions. But what keeps playing through my mind, you guys, is this. The dogs hit on the bucket on the end loader. The dogs hit on the conveyor system. The dogs hit 8 feet up on the sand pile. The dogs led us to Cuss. There's a dark spot, black, in the middle of Cuss Road with all of DCI and the entire investigative team, all hands on deck. Cadavers dogs not led down there, or I mean, not allowed down into the Cuss Road. Sheriff Pogel saying, "Wait, we have a serious crime scene. Can't even let the cadaver dog." You're looking at the picture. We've got the blue vehicle that looks weird. And it's suspicious looking. Could very easily be the RAV. We've got the dark black spot. We're missing the floor mat out of the cargo area, which would have a very black rubber huge mat that could be covered over a bone or a body and burn there. And then you get to the bones, and they're pulverized, they're traumatized, they have been mechanically traumatized. What
Correct.
if we do all the things with Dogs Don't Lie and we walk it and we say, is it plausible that what really happened is we went from burnt body or bones, they took him out on Cuss Road, dumped him out of the burn barrels, left the burn barrels sit there. Maybe that's what we're seeing with these circular little dots, 3 of them right there. Then they throw that cargo mat over the top. They burn it. That's the black spot you get, is that black rubber being burnt. And what did they do? In my opinion, I think the reason we get the hit on the end loader is I think they went out there and I did, like I said, 45 studies of what end loaders have done accidentally to workers that were walking by. With a small, slow movement of the bucket, they have cracked open skulls to the point that people are dead instantaneously. Can you imagine, with hundreds of pounds, thousands of pounds of pressure, that end loader just pressing down on that mat, on that asphalt, what would happen to those bones?
They'll be crunched.
Well,
And
then,
don't,
where'd
yeah,
the dogs hit next? They hit on the bucket. They hit on the
yeah.
golf court. They hit on the shovel. Shovel the bones up in buckets. Load them on the cart, on the golf cart. Take that end through Cuss Road. What do? Plant the bones. I'm not saying this is what happened. Don't
Sure,
get me wrong.
sure.
But I'm not one that won't walk theories. I admire theories because it creates thinking process. It shows critical thinking and it will lead you to dig deeper in certain areas. And in doing that, we've created this channel. So I'm one of those that you can come in and tell me aliens did this and I'll still listen to you for a minute. I may not agree with you. I won't necessarily agree with you, but I'll give you the time of day because your alien theme might lead me to the fact that all of a sudden I find out she wasn't in the original location to start with. She was somewhere else. And you're saying she was teleported, but really she was moved. It could just lead somewhere. So it's worth listening to every human being that's putting time in on this case. You don't know. They can be brand new and have an amazing epiphany that nobody else has thought of.
Well,
So
the yeah.
everybody's appreciated.
Well, Rubberducky, it's pretty obvious that the state was trying to make this case as simple as possible. And that's why they didn't want to approach the bones at the quarry because it complicated their story deeply. But not only that, you got to remember that we don't have a complete skeleton.
Not even
Only
close.
25% of the skull has been recovered. A lot of the skull is missing. Now, can I just state that whatever happened to this person, this individual was shot twice in the back of the head, one in the temple and one in the back of the head, and the body appeared to have been cut up in pieces. because we have saw blade marks, including on the pelvis. So, you know, like I said, I read the report. I went through all the testimonies. So this person was shot at least twice in the head. The body was cut up, and after incineration, the skeletal remains were pulverized. I've never heard of a murder like this. This is horrendous.
Now let
I
me.
want to ask you then, Dr. Silkman, how on earth could you come to that conclusion of that big drawn out story with basically gravel for bones and ash or whatever? How on
Yeah.
earth could you come to this total complete conclusion of an entire, like Kratz, this whole big long story? How on earth could they have?
It's absolute rubbish. I'm sorry. If this was a burning of a body, you would have found the entire skeletal remains in the one spot. But the state had a problem, and that is the burn pit can't get hot enough, and the body
And
has
and the cut up bones and the badly damaged bones could be from a cremation also.
yes,
Yeah, we
but
can rule that out.
but not only that, there's a problem. 60% of the skeleton is missing.
Well,
Yeah,
what,
so
if
that would
I
explain a cremation where they had to give the rest of it to the original family.
That is possible. And look, I
what
just
if
want to.
what if Silkman, Dr. Silkman, I just want you to think of this. Now, you probably heard me say this before, but I want to, you know, because I don't know what happened in this case. Nobody really does. But I want to take a stand with BB for a minute. I want to play something hypothetically out to see if you can debunk it. Okay, based on your scientific experiment, your knowledge of this case so far. All right. So let's just say that a real killer came along, totally evaporated Teresa by putting her in a smelter at 3 a.m. on the 4th. Just whole body gone, not a drop of evidence left. What if they crushed her car at another salvage yard and it got melted down and it's gone and they've got nothing? With what you see, is it possible that they would have got another replacement victim's bones, not wanted it to be able to be identified as cremated, poured the bones from the crematory without grinding them, just took them out, barely raked them, put them on a hard surface.
Sorry, I'm not sticking around too long. I'm tired.
Can somebody mute their mic, please? Thank you.
I guess Dad. I called Dad. I'm like, hey, give me a call.
Hello?
They're calling me.
Hello? Okay, she must have a call and not know.
I can't get back into the car to mute you guys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to call and tell them what I
And my
had.
daughter just shut up. I'm trying to smother you in my stomach.
BB.
Here's
Okay, so what we're saying is, in a theory, okay, if it was cremation bones that did not go through a grinder, barely raked, they just burn the body up, throw it in a bucket, throw the bones there, and then they take it and they put it on Crossroad, smash the bones, reburn them so that they have this a different look than a crematory, then smash it with something. Would you have a different opinion of this case in any way if that was the actual way it was done?
I would support your hypothesis, except for one thing. Except for one thing.
Right.
That is, we have a partial DNA profile from BZ. If we didn't have that partial profile, absolutely any shenanigans could have gone down. But the fact that we've got a partial profile from BZ, now let me explain. BZ, they used desiccated muscle tissue. There was only a tiny, tiny amount of muscle tissue stuck to the bone. Culhane took that tissue, tested it. Also, the FBI tested it as well and got mitochondrial DNA. The fact that we've got a partial profile from BZ, for me, looking at this objectively, I'm 99.99% convinced what we are seeing are the cremains of Teresa Hallbach.
So in other words, the identity,
Maybe, though, they could be cremains of someone else or animals.
or right, or what if they found, and this, I know it's a lot of what ifs, but I just keep walking different theories to see which one we all stumble upon as a world, and we can't debunk it, is what I'm going for throughout the whole channel.
Yeah, of course.
So let's jump. The only thing holding us back is the identity. So let's say, what if I said that the real killer did it, left the body on Cuss Road on just laying on the grass. The LA came upon, they knew for a fact that they would have a problem identifying the killer, that it probably wouldn't lead back to Steve Avery. So they would have cremated the body and then followed suit with what everything I told you. Then is there something you can debunk?
Well, we don't know. We don't know what the history of that skeleton is, right? So in other words, any speculative situation can take place.
Okay.
All I'm saying, the way I approach the case is I only look at the evidence that we have. So I can't give you a history per se of what may have happened.
Right.
All I know is from what I read from Eisenberg's report and also from Bennett. And all I know is that the skeletal remains are from an adult female. The DNA testing proves that the skeletal remains are indeed of a female. Bennett, having a look at the pelvis, was able to say it's from an adult female. Also, Eisenberg looked at the brow, the brow above the eye, and also I think it was the radial bone. And she was able to conclude that it was from an adult female. So both the DNA testing and also examination of the bones confirm that it's an adult female under 30 years of age, based on the bones and the lack of any formation of arthritis, etc., etc. So each result complements each other, right? And the fact that we do have some DNA evidence. So to me, that tends to suggest. Now, I know you can criticize it because we don't have a full DNA profile, but it tends to suggest that those cremains are Teresa Hallbach's. We know that because I know BB's going to jump up and down.
Yeah.
We have the pap smear.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, well, whatever.
Oh, 2-year-old pap smear does not exist. I don't care what kind of gentleman agrees.
My niece's head would explode.
The state of Wisconsin.
I knew
Can
that.
Can I interject very quickly?
Okay.
Basically, from a layman's point of view, and just a thought here that, first of all, as a whole, and I'm looking at this and I see where they've found something that they say are the remains of a human being. I get that. But my whole thing is, within the week, they had an entire story of exactly what happened to this individual and who did it. That's bogus bullcrap.
Well, and we have a state of Wisconsin law that requires the destruction of pap smears.
It's not a law. It's not a law. They just cannot keep a name on it after
oh my gosh.
the 14 days.
Okay, so they keep identification on it. Next, pap smear is not sterile. Yeah, they wear gloves when they do it, but you know what? There's no top slide on the top of that.
It's not collected right. It's not dried right. It's not stored right to be a sample for DNA.
And if we're going off of the idea that we're going through a gentleman's agreement, in what realm, I ask all viewers all over the world, in what realm would Zellner ever go into a gentleman's agreement with crap?
But you do realize this: if there wasn't a gentleman's agreement, there's no case. There's no case.
That's
and you know what I say about the gentleman's agreement.
There's no case.
Without
Feuding had an agreement with Steve Avery when he took the $200K from him.
240.
to represent him. That's who he had a gentleman's agreement with. He was contracted. Ooh, I almost said a bad word. He was contracted to do a specific job for him, and he had no business making a gentleman's agreement with Kratz and honoring that over his own client, who paid him quite well.
Yeah.
But just answering some of the questions in the chat, they're all excellent questions, by the way, guys. Don't forget, we've got blood in the RAV, but we've also got saliva. Now, when DNA was extracted from the blood in the back of the RAV, DNA was extracted from the saliva of the cherry Pepsi can and also from the pap smear. They all were identical. So therefore, you've got 3 independent samples. In actual fact, you've got 4. You've got BZ. Now, this is an amazing coincidence, you have to admit, whereby you've got a pap smear done several years ago. You've got the blood in the back of the RAV. You've got the saliva in the cherry Pepsi can, and you've got a bit of desiccated muscle tissue on BZ.
But it's
All
all,
of them.
But couldn't all those things be collected from somebody at a mortuary?
Okay, let's also talk about this, you guys. If these items that are in the RAV that were used to identify Teresa Halbach as the person with the blood in the back, here's the problem I have with it in the case from the evidence that we see. All right. Number one, the blood in the back of the RAV is on one panel. And on that panel, there's something very suspicious, and that is that the panel has all the little rivet covers missing, every single one of them. You only take all of them off when you remove a panel. We have the wrong color car. So the problem with it being the way that it's presented and then just assuming it's fact is that you can't just say, well, it's definitely Teresa Halbach that was in this situation that was murdered, when the blood itself is now mobile because the initial RAV, like rivet covers of that panel, have been removed, suggesting that panel has at one point in time been removed. And we can't prove that that didn't happen in a different RAV. And that panel got popped out to prevent them from finding the real killer DNA and put into a clean RAV that didn't have handprints on the steering wheel, didn't have handprints of anybody in that vehicle. Apparently, nobody drove this vehicle. Now, from a scientific standpoint, could Steve Avery remove all of Teresa Halbach's DNA except for her handprint on the door? Just wipe it clean and it's good enough?
Well, if he did that, why did he leave his own blood in the RAV? It makes no sense.
See?
So no, it doesn't. None of it makes any sense.
The entire crime scene looks staged.
Yes.
Now, that's all I'm saying. I'm just saying the RAV4 looks very much like a staged event. And the reason why I say that is that if you contest the fact that if you go with the fact that he was an actively bleeding individual, one would have expected to see blood, some of his blood, mixed with Teresa's in the back of the RAV, because he's obviously picking up her body, placing it in the car. He had to touch doors, he had to touch panels, he had to touch things. Then how come we don't find his blood anywhere on the outside? Anywhere really on the inside, apart from near the ignition key. There were a few droplets found on the carpet, correct? But if you had to pop open the hood, why isn't there any blood there at all? It honestly makes no sense whatsoever. If he cleaned the RAV, he definitely would have cleaned his own blood near the ignition key.
All right.
Yep, sorry, go ahead.
I want to bring up what they're bringing up in the chat because it's very important. What we have is, and I'm going to hand this off to Silkman after I say this so that he can qualify this a little bit better than I can. However, there was 2 DNA tests done. No tests were done on bones. None.
No,
Not
none.
None. So the bones have not once ever, and if anybody tells you different, they're wrong. Not one bone has ever been tested in the Steve Avery Teresa Halbach case. What has been tested is, and this is going to lead into a couple questions, and I'm going to say them all at once for you, is the tissue that was attached to the bone. So the first question is going to be, and I have two more to follow that come from the crowd. One is, isn't it strange in a scientific perspective that the bones are to a point that they are no longer, according to the FBI, able to test them because they are calcined, or whatever the word is, yet
Calcined.
this tissue survives.
But there's just one little piece of meat left, miraculously.
Exactly. Number two, so we know that two things happened according to the reports. Now, this is allegedly, because I doubt they really did happen, but we have the FBI that supposedly allegedly tested BZ, renamed it as Q1. They're testing the tissue. They're doing a different kind of test than Culhane, big-haired VO5 lady, is saying. So big-haired Culhane from the 1985 case is now doing 2005. She leaves it and she names it BZ. Now, in her case, she was not doing mitochondrial DNA testing. She was simply doing a normal DNA.
Genomic.
Like a DNA profile.
Genomic DNA.
This is where we get only 7 loci, or loci, and that comes from Culhane. And that's her report. And she does misquote 1 in a billion. That is the smoke and mirrors.
Oh, yeah.
Don't worry about that. Don't
She's
worry about
a mess.
FBI, though. This is where I think I've got this understood a little bit better from listening to, trying to learn. Dr. Silkman has established that mitochondrial DNA, it wasn't a 7 loci match. So can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so basically what they do when they test mitochondrial DNA is very, very different to genomic DNA. Genomic DNA is found in our chromosomes, which are present in the nucleus. And I did a little video making a genome that explained that. Mitochondrial
that is
DNA,
on the channel if they do want to go back after you talk about it.
Mitochondrial DNA is present in mitochondria, and it's small and it's circular. The entire DNA sequence of mitochondria, we know what the DNA sequence is. And mitochondria has specific regions which are hypervariable. In other words, that they're different from individual to individual. The important thing about mitochondria is that they are transmitted from your mother. So your mitochondrial DNA is almost 100% identical with your mum. Therefore, what the FBI did is that they sequenced the mitochondria from BZ and the mitochondria from Karen, Teresa's mother, and it was virtually identical. I think there was a 1 base pair difference between the mitochondrial DNA. And that is highly suggestive that the mitochondria from BZ is the same as the mitochondria from Karen, Teresa Halbach's mother. There was only a 1 base pair difference. So now, that's highly suggestive.
On that, talking about it, we're writing this part, so we need to, this is the third part of the question. This really doesn't come from me because I've already had it answered, but I enjoyed your answer, and it really illuminated the complication of people not understanding DNA, like myself.
Yeah.
And so what has been brought up is, and this is going to throw us back, and that's what this whole movie that we just did is, the 1985 case. So according to what we're finding out is that the previous DNA run through of Steven Avery's blood from the 1985 case then is not comparing correctly to Steven's 2005 blood test. Can you explain a little take on that as to why that would not be, why we wouldn't jump on that and say, wait a minute, do they have 2 different people's blood?
No. That's that. I take it that's to do with the Reddit post that everyone's jumping up and down.
Well, I just want to understand it better. And it
Yeah.
wouldn't hurt to hear it twice.
Yeah.
Plus, the way you explained it,
Yeah.
it kind of made me understand it enough to where I could digest it, but I can't read. So I thought it
Yeah.
was a perfect time while you have listeners to kind of walk us through why we would get two different forms, or not forms, but two different readings from
Profiles.
DNA and
Yeah.
still be the same person.
Yeah. Well, for a
How-
start, in 1996, they only did 3 loci. They did TPOX, THO1, and the CSF alleles. Now, it is correct. It is correct. The allelic profile done in 1996 is slightly different to the 2005 DNA profile. Now, you've got to remember in 2005, Sherry Cohane used a completely different kit to what would have been used in 1996. Therefore, you cannot directly compare the results from 1996. They tested the DNA from the fingernail scrapings in 1996. If you use a different kit, you may get entirely different results, because what happens is when you amplify up DNA, use specific primers. So what I did is I went back to the governmental website, and lo and behold, there are multiple sets of primers that you can use to amplify up these specific markers. Depending on what primers you use, lo and behold, you get a different result. Now, it is true, your alleles will not change. They're with you for life. So I had a look at TPOX, and the TPOX alleles are exactly the same in 96 to 2005, which tends to suggest that the primers that we used were the same. With THO1 in 1996, they got allele marker 10. Let's just give it a number. 10 came up. In 2005, allele 9.3 came up. Well, if you have a look at the PCR primers, there's literally a 1 base pair difference between 10 and 9.3. Now, you cannot visually tell a difference of 1 base pair. So it's very easy to make a mistake. Remember, in 2005, it's all done by computer. Therefore, it's going to be much more accurate than what would have been done in 1996. So that's very easy. The one that worries me to a degree is the CSF. In 1996, they got an allele 7, and in 2005, they got an allele 12. The
Ooh,
difference in sizes
5.
is about 20, I think 20 base pairs. Now,
That's
if
starting to be significant enough.
it, well,
Then you need a
it's
reason for
so,
it to be different,
it
right?
is so close. It is so close. It's very easy to make a mistake. Now, what people are forgetting is that in 2005, everyone started from square one. That means everyone had a new buccal swab, everyone had a new blood sample, and they used the same kit on everyone. And we know that the results are accurate because when they took a buccal swab of Steven Avery and they compared that to his blood that was found in his grand dam, boom, it's 100% match. Therefore, we know that the alleles, the results of the experiment, are 100% accurate, right? So they took blood from his grand dam. They took a fresh buccal swab of Steven Avery. They extracted DNA, ran the markers, and they're 100% identical. So I think, because if you don't really understand the DNA behind how the experiments were done, everyone is sort of saying, oh, something is wrong in 1996. The reality is, if we don't know what PCR primers were used, what the actual process or procedure was, you cannot directly compare those results. Do you understand?
I do,
So,
and thank you.
no
All right,
problems.
guys.
So, yeah.
I was just go ahead and add on what you need, please. We enjoy learning from you.
No, so you could only compare apples to apples, not apples to oranges. That's why in 2005 everyone started off with a fresh buccal swab, fresh blood results, and the same DNA amplification kit. The results were examined by a computer. Therefore, the accuracy of the results are going to pretty well be 100% because the computer, you put in the data, it compares the data with what you've placed in. It's not going to give you a false result. In 1996, the DNA techniques were relatively primitive in terms of the analysis of the results. And so you've got to be a little bit cautious with trying to compare those results with the 2005.
Gotcha.
So in other words, there is a non-nefarious answer to the discrepancies. And I agree, there are differences, but remember, only 3 loci were looked at in 1996, and the judge said, well, yes, there are allelic differences. They don't come from Stephen, but I'm not convinced that Penny didn't touch somebody else. That's why they didn't exonerate him. However, when they tested the pubic hair, when Cherie tested the pubic hair and did a full profile, of course, it matched to Gregory Allen. Bang, no questions asked, released.
So is it fair to say now, today, that if by chance they were actually going to allow the testing of whatever remains that there are, whoever has them, would actually tell us who that is?
If you're talking about testing the bones?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no question about that. If you accept the pap smear result as being Teresa Hallbach, you can now, I know, BB.
No, what I'm saying now is based on they already have a DNA profile for her, and I'm excluding that pap smear. Okay. But all other things that they do have,
you don't have really, truly a DNA
profile.
Well, okay, let me tell you how I would do it. Forget the pap smear. I would do mitochondrial DNA on the bones, and I would also do mitochondrial DNA on on Teresa's mother. There would be no dispute. And what you would do is you either do a comparison of the sequences, or if you could, try and sequence the entire mitochondrial genome and compare it with
would that narrow it down enough for them?
Oh yeah.
And it would be crucial that keep big hair Colhane away from it.
Correct.
All right, you guys. We're at 9:02, and I want to keep this nice and short. So we've already missed that mark. But we have a lot of lives coming up, so we'll continue then. I want to thank you all. I want to thank you.
And you could probably find most of us over in Discord.
Yeah, you can join us if you'd like.
Or having breakfast.
Can I say one brief thing to everybody out there who's listening?
Absolutely.
This was actually to just kind of open this book to look at a person's life, you know, and what's happened to it. And he was very young when this all started. You all know when you're young, you're not always making the best choices, but that does not make you a murderer.
Right. Very, very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also we mustn't ever forget, if Teresa was indeed the victim, that this was a brutal murder, and we must never forget that. And there is the possibility that there is a killer or killers still out there.
And it doesn't, you know what? Just remove just say victim. The victim went through a horrific murder.
Terrific, unbelievably bad, unbelievably horrific.
All right, you guys. So I want to thank you for watching our mini MaM that was released. We have a lot more of them in the series. We bring it all the way up to present day with Zellner and the post-conviction and how the state's handling the case. What we basically decided to do is once we have the base format and foundation of the library, which gives you a historical documents, we all came together and decided that we needed to record this entire event with the commingling of the past and how it's married to the 2005 case and how it's married to the state now withholding evidence, suppressing evidence, destroying evidence. It's all telling a bigger picture, and that's what we're here to do with our movies. We all work on them as RD researchers, whether we're just gathering information. I want to personally do some shout outs because this is a special day for me to know that I no longer, in the past, I used to do these videos pretty much alone for a little while, and it was a lot of pressure for me to not have a sounding board before I came out. Just rely on the public to say, well, that's been debunked. And I was like, okay. Now I want to say what a blessing it is that the Stephen and Brendan case is so strongly aligned with innocence that we're pulling out of the woodwork the people that have the credentials to actually explain things to us. And we're using all of those resources. We're capturing the resources on whether they're phone experts like Jeff or they're people that work on maps a lot like Calf, whether it's Zoe or Bumblebee just running around. Bumblebee's my right hand. She just looks for any information, no matter what time it is. I can walk in the room and be like, hey, I need to know what day this happened. BB's like, all right, hold on. And she loves me, and she does that, and she loves this case, and she works on doing that. Zoe, I'm going to tell you something. This girl has lived and breathed this case as much as me, and she has done an immense amount of work on this.
She has.
And Silkman, the videos you're creating are bringing such public awareness. You're just a blessing to this case.
Thank you. No, thank you, Rubberducky, for giving me the opportunity.
And also, I want to do a shout out for those that are new researchers that we've added to our team is Holly C. and Sammy. Both of the ladies, we've been watching them for a while. That's how we do get researchers, is we pay attention to those that are consistently researching and bringing source material, asking questions, thinking outside the box, and we notice that they're going to bring something to the table. But what's incredible is we could have ended up with everybody having the same opinion, and what good's that going to do us? But instead, we got people that actually fit in so well because we have resources to pull within our own group. And so we invite you, do your own research as well. Don't take anybody's word for anything in this case. If you have questions, go to the library, whether it's our library or somebody else's. Go to another researcher, go to an armchair sleuth, ask for the documents, read them yourself. Because you digging into this case not only protects Stephen and Brendan by keeping your eyes in the world's eyes, and the world is coming together. We are taking a stand. It's not Wisconsin against Steven Avery anymore. It's the whole world looking at Wisconsin saying, this is how you handle your people. This is what you do. You totally break your own laws. You don't care about human rights. You're going to take somebody that has 16 eyewitnesses and proof that he could not have done it and take away his adult life when he's supposed to be raising his own children. Those children had no father. The real rapist was out there walking around raping other women.
Correct.
It's not okay. If you're the governor, if you're the attorney general, if you're anybody in those particular positions, no matter what you got on your plate that's costing you whatever it is to behave the way you are, let me tell you, the light's going to shine. And when it does, it's going to shine on everybody that's hiding in the dark. And we're going to know you. And you're not going to be able to hide anymore. So if you want to accidentally butt dial Zellner again and accidentally tell her the real crap that you guys did, hey, we're actually going to be a lot more forgiving than you can imagine. So do it. Just clear your conscience. You won't believe how good you feel not to fear your own life. You've created lies, you've stolen lives, you've ruined lives, and it's
Yeah.
time for you to be an adult. Stand up and tell us what the hell you did to this poor woman. Tell us what happened. If you would have just left everything the way it fell, wherever the dust hit the floor, just left it alone. If the person did it, it's going to come out. Quit doing this. Well, we think he's guilty, so we're going to make it look that way. Because if you're wrong, you're causing so much damage.
Well, Zellner warned Stephen, science will find you out.
Yep.
And Stephen said, go for it. All right. And this is coming from Stephen
Absolutely.
himself. He knew that if he was guilty, science was going to prove him.
Mm.
And
How
at
do
the
you-
moment, all we have is 100% speculation.
Right. All right.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, RD.
I love
Thank you
all
from the bottom of my heart.
of us, Sammy. Thank you. I want to spread the love, everybody, our love for all of us, for every single soul that lays eyes on this case, that takes the time, whether you're just sharing things on Twitter or you're talking about the case. Get the word out there. Share, share, share. Share Cozy's channel. Share Millibilly's channel. Share share everything. Go on Facebook. Acknowledge Jax for her joy. Spread the love. Share that these men are innocent. I would love to move on to a new case, knowing that Brendan and Stephen are home. We're on the verge of that. The state has their back against the wall. That's why they talked out of turn. They are panicked. Do you think they're not sleeping at night? You're right. They can't be, because Zellner has put them in a place that they can't get out of. And so that's why we don't have a reply, and it's May 2nd, I mind you. So they don't know what to say anymore. They don't know what to say. They really don't know what to say. And the reason is they're mute. They can't tell the truth right now because they're fearful of somebody else. And unfortunately, I believe in this case, the reason that we don't have the talkers, everybody says, why doesn't somebody come forward? I think we have a gag order in place. I want you guys, I challenge anybody on the planet, start looking into a gag order. I know I saw something years ago that confused the heck out of me. I still, to this day, in hindsight, wish I would have downloaded this. It was a lawsuit. I found it through Manitowoc County as well as Calumet County. It had thousands of names on it, from Colburn to Link, you name it. I couldn't get the case open to find out what the case was regarding. Now I look back on it after doing all this, I'm wondering, was that a gag order? Is that why we have silence? And with that, I love you guys, and we're going to get off here. It will be every Thursday night at 6 p.m. We're going to be having our new Mini MaM series. It will be walking through the entire case. We're going to try not to miss details, which we're going to, because this case is just unbelievably thick with details. But we're going to do our best, and we've commingled the current, the past, and everything that we know that went on in the case to debunk as we go along. So it's a completely different version, as you saw, of MaM, but it still rides the same railroad in a way, because the ladies did a fantastic job with MaM 1 and MaM 2. Also, if you're into these live chats like we're doing, Saturday night, we've got a very special guest, and that is Jax from MaM Gossip over on Facebook, and she also hosts another large group, and I believe that's called Steven Avery Project.
Yeah, right.
I'm really excited to have her on, as well as we have some future guests that are just exciting there. Also, please join us if you're interested in the actual court documents. We do a daily Monday through Friday read of the CASO Investigative Reports, and it wouldn't be hard to catch up. They're only 10 pages we do a day, so if you wanted to catch up, you could. Otherwise, just jump in with both feet. We're just getting into the good stuff now. And then last but not least, I want to tell you, I have really searched hard for somebody that I can relate to as a YouTuber, and I have found that Millbilly does such a fantastic job, you guys.
He does.
I would love for you to go visit his channel, play his, you could watch several. He does it very quick and to the point, and I just absolutely adore his videos. So with that, you guys share the love, take care, and it's time, you guys. Everybody want to say it with me? Anybody that wants to can. I'm going to say it. All right. And if you didn't do the crime, you shouldn't do the time.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, guys. Love you all very, very much. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
All
Rubber
right,
Ducky.
guys. Now I got to do the thing where I try to figure out how to hang
How
up.
to get out of here? Yeah.
Much love, everybody. This will only be 5 minutes. Bye, BB. I love you.